participate in the session, deans, academic directors, faculty members, and my dear students. Good morning, one and all. So, we do go through a different steps while carrying out a research. The final and most rigorous step is dissemination of the research what we conduct. So, it is done through a publication of that research, including its scientific and practical contributions to others in a particular field. So, this makes the scientific researchers and practitioners with similar interest aware of new knowledge in their field, and it will be helping to advance knowledge and its application. So getting done with this, the researcher has to draft an unique work of the researcher as a manuscript very dynamically for the highly indexed quality journals. So with this idea, we are organizing a webinar on manuscript writing by Parul Institute of Nursing. Myself, Mrs. Vinaya, Associate Professor from Department of OBG Nursing, privileged to welcome you all to this webinar. Today we have with us an eminent personality, Dr. Sabita Nayak, Professor, HOD, Vice Principal, Department of OBG Nursing, Nitte Usha Institute of Nursing Sciences, Nitte deemed to be University, Mangalore, as our expert for the session. Very happy to introduce you, ma'am. Madam has completed the BSc Nursing from Father Muller College of Nursing, Mangalore in the year 1992 and completed MSc from M.V. Shetty College of Nursing, Mangalore under RGHS, Bangalore through deputation from Nitte Education Trust in OB Nursing in the year 1998. And Madam is working in Nitte Usha Institute of Nursing Sciences in 1994 and on and off in various capacities. Since 2005, working in Nitte till date. Currently working as HOD OBG Nursing, and Madam has also worked as staff nurse, staff midwife in National Maternity Hospital, Hall Street, Dublin, Ireland. Since 2011, Madam is working in the capacity of Vice Principal at Nitte Usha Institute of Nursing Sciences, Nitte University, so which was accredited with NAC A plus in the recent NAC accreditation. So, Madam has recently completed the PhD nursing from Nitte deemed to be University in the year 2019. And Madam is master trainer for many of the programs of neonatal resuscitation and maternal care. And Madam has published and presented many papers in the reputed journals too. May I now request Madam Dr. Sabita Nayak to proceed with the session.
Good morning to all. Myself Sabita Nayak, as Vinaya has already, introduced me. I thank you, the organizers, for giving me an opportunity to be a part of this session today. In fact, it's more on manuscript writing. In fact, my area of interest is mostly on the postpartum women, and my area of interest of research also regarding PhD was on postpartum challenges, what were the challenges faced by the mothers. So I completed in 2019, as Vinaya said, and today I'll just give you an overview of this manuscript writing. In fact, it's a rigorous task. I think all of us face this, and many a times rejection also is a part of this manuscript writing. So let us move on to this manuscript writing. Let me just share my screen. Is it visible, Vinaya? Hello?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, all right, right.
Yes.
Okay, when we say to manuscript writing, we usually have, am I ready to write a paper? What was my original hypothesis? Do my data answer the question? Are the data sufficient to support the conclusion? Are my findings novel? In fact, this is what happens to all the research. Once a thesis or the project is ready, I think, as universities very well know, today I think publication is also a part of any university or any academician should see that whatever scientific research is carried out, she or he needs to publish it. So naturally, when we finish with this project, or before we could think of, taking up another project, we think, yeah, how to publish this. So that readiness is very much necessary. And in fact, hypothesis plays an important role, because all of us know only when the hypothesis, there should be a significant relationship or a significant association, or whatever hypothesis you have put in, there should be some result which you can state that, yes, this is what is with the results. So that is why, do my data answer the question? Are the data sufficient to support the conclusion? Also should be part, because today, if you see, to discussion or conclusion, supportive and contradictory plays an important role. And one more very important aspect is novelty, or novels should be there in scientific research. So this is what is readiness. And when we get set, we come to a question mark as to what type of article shall I write. Maybe a short communication, or maybe a thesis, I mean the abstract, or the original research article, or a case study, or it's a review article. What type of article should I write, or shall I write? And how do I choose my journal? This is also very, very, very essential, because today when we say to journal choosing, there are lots of predatory journals also, but then UGC Care List has given us a sort of, choosing the journals, which is very, very essential, so that we don't publish in some sort of predatory journals, because predatory journals, the scope of it is very minimal, and other thing is, it is not in high impact factor databases. So that is why when you choose a journal also, it's very essential these journals are of high repute journals. So if you see this picture, what does it mean to do scientific research? When we say to scientific research, all of us know evidence-based practice comes into picture. And when we say to evidence-based practice, I think all of you know, dear students, that EBP, like for example, I am in a postnatal unit, or I am in OBG unit. What are some of the scientific research aspects which can be carried out in my unit, and which area it can be implemented, and how best my results can be on a day-to-day basis applied in the field? For a simple example is my, immediately after the baby is born, in Indian settings, we come across, the cord is cut and the baby is put on the warmer. But in Western countries, we come across that before the cord is cut, also, if a baby has got a good cry, baby is directly put on the mother's abdomen, or kangaroo mother care, because they say, thermoregulation and the basic resuscitation, if a baby has got a good cry, the mother's thermoregulation or skin to skin contact will be sufficient to bring about a change in the thermoregulation. That's a really good scientific research which can be implemented in almost all settings, as long as the baby is normal. So that is what is meant by scientific research, which has to be implemented. Just ponder this. I think 2 minutes, you can just go through this slide. And I think all of us at one time or the other, we have this in mind when we go about with the manuscript writing. Yeah, that was a picture which was, in fact, all of us as researchers, we come across this hurdle in us, because, you know something to write, but you do not know how to write, what exactly has to be written in a journal. When you send it for journal, manuscript writing has a format to be taken into consideration. That is why, many times when we send an article to a journal, it comes within no time it is rejected. You send this morning, by evening it is on your mail that it's not been accepted. Why this happens? That is because we don't follow the guidelines of this manuscript writing. That is why it is clearly said by accepted journals or good impact factor journals that one needs to follow the author guidelines. It's called as author guidelines. Each journal has their own author guidelines. In the sense, what happens is, each journal might say that, yeah, this should be the abstract. The number of words in the abstract should be this much, or number of words in the complete the article should be this much. This is what is to be followed by all the authors when you choose a journal. So that is why, as this happens, many a times we all face this, and that is why when it comes to rejection, we should never be, disheartened that your article has been rejected. You need to improvise upon it and see that manuscript is the that an author submits to a publisher, editor, or producer for publication. So the format standard for a short story manuscript or an accepted manuscript, reviewed but not yet in a final format, distributed in advance as a preprint. So this is what is very much needed when we follow the guide. That's why we say, I think all of you might have heard about the IMRD format. Wherever you go for a presentation also, they ask you to send your abstract. And similarly, when the author publication, when you have to write the manuscript and send it for a publication also, they ask you for an IMRD format, because that is what is very much necessary when you write an article or manuscript, especially because there's a slight difference between manuscript and article. So a well-written manuscript has the following components: a clear title, an abstract, an introductory paragraph, methods and material section, discussion of results, conclusion, a list of references. In fact, what I said is this is a manuscript for an original research article. Similarly, for a review article, you might have a different mode of approach, whereas for a case study, it may be a different mode of approach. But normally, as researchers, we do think of publishing original research article. In that, this should be the format, that is clearly an IMRD format, what we call. I stands for introduction, M for methods, R for results, and D for discussion. So what we call it as IMRD format, IMRD format. So article text follows the IMRD format, which responds to the questions below. That is, under introduction, you need to clearly have what did you or others do? Why did you do it? So introduction should clearly give you set example. Yes, something is there here, a novelty is there, or that is what an introduction should be so catchy, wherein, all of you might have as researchers come across when we do research also, the introduction should be such that we bring about all the statistics, what was there, and what further you need to do this aspect. So that is what is required. And in materials and methods, is it a descriptive? Is it an experimental? Is it an RCT? All these things also come. So the materials and methods clearly gives you how did you do it? What was the methodology you followed? And finally, the results. Results is based on the hypothesis. The objectives are there, which comes across, and that you check with your results whether the hypothesis or the objectives were fulfilled, by which way was it fulfilled. That is what you find. And finally, under discussion, you just clearly have a look at discussion by saying, yes, this were my results, and what were some of the supportive articles which were for this result, or which were some of the contradictory articles which were against this. So this is what is usually followed in any of the journals when you write a manuscript writing. So this is called as IMRD format. So when you next will move on to what is the importance of manuscript. A well-structured manuscript helps you enhance the meaning of your ideas and tells readers what to expect at different parts of the manuscript. They may be primary sources, often unique ones, upon which the writing of history may be based, or they provide evidence of human activity. So mainly when you say to importance of manuscript, you need to very well structure your manuscript in such a way. That is why it is clearly said before you think of publishing, think of which journal are you going to publish. Or there are various, I will move on further to tell you how exactly you can get to know which is your. There are search engines where you can find which best journal suits to you for your study, because all journals, like for example, if I say I have done something on exclusive breastfeeding and weight of the newborn at discharge. This is one simple study what I have done, and I'm going to publish in some adolescent health or adolescent research journal. I think it may not take up because this is more into breastfeeding. So you need to look into which is the best journal for this article. That is why it is clearly said, see that what is your study on, then choose a best journal which will take up that easily. Okay. Can you all hear me? Hello, Vinaya?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Hello?
You are
Okay, fine.
audible. Yes.
Oh, yeah, right, right. Okay. So next we'll move on to steps to organizing your manuscript. So what we do is, we have, the introduction work. I was telling you about the IMRD. So there should be a compelling introduction, what we call it as, because the introduction should be such that it should be very, very catchy. You understand? When I say catchy, it is really, the way of your writing, the way of your projection should focusing so much that the editor should really accept it in one go. That is why it is clearly said that there should be a compelling introduction. So the prepare the figures and tables, it will be a different file. Write the methods, write up the results, write the discussion, write a clear conclusion will be there. Other than that, you can see any manuscript when you send, it gives you clearly write an abstract. What is an abstract, by the way? Abstract is nothing but, again, as I mentioned to you, IMRD gives you the entire abstract. And important is in an abstract, you need to have this also. So that is like, for example, exclusive breastfeeding and weight of the newborn at discharge. That's a short and sweet title. And when you say to the problem statement, you may say a study on assessing the exclusive, breastfeeding and weight of the newborn at discharge among the neonates in the postnatal unit in the selected hospital. It's very lengthy. That's why when a manuscript is written, the title should always be very, very catchy and very, very simple. But it should convey everything. It should convey everything, because the title will give you exactly what is it, what you have done research on. And one more very important aspect is the manuscript should also contain, if you have given any acknowledgements, or if there was any funding necessary, if somebody had funded you for this project, yes, their acknowledgements may play an important role. And one more very important is references, because this you have to have references, not for anything else, because you are citing somewhere or other, like maybe in review of literature, maybe in an introductory aspect, maybe in a need for the study, you are quoting or you are giving some of the things from where you have reviewed. So these references also play an important role. So this is how you organize your manuscript. So when we say to the format of the manuscript, you can very well see It is guidelines for authors. Remember, a research manuscript has specific sections which are stipulated in the guidelines for authors. So each section has a specific purpose. That is why if you today go in for for a manuscript submission, today I think almost all the journals are having an online submission and they give you a reference number, and this online submission is through the login manager, or what to say, we call it as the journal manager or journal editor. You have to log in through that page and go there, and naturally, as and when you want to see the status, they may send you revisions, but you can very well look into the status by going into the login manager as and when. There it will be clearly given where is your manuscript reached. So that is why online submission today has become the rule. And with online submission, each section, the choose files, each what to say, journal will have their own way of what to say, submission. So that is why figures and tables may be another file, the same abstract may be another file, and the complete page can be complete original article may be another file. So that is how, depends on what guidelines for the authors it is given in that journal. That is why please do remember, when you choose a journal, first read to the guidelines for authors. Second is, have a look at the similar article in that journal. I mean, not it may be similar or it may be somewhat, deviation, but you just remember, okay, I just want to publish in this journal. Let me have a look at how is the journal, how is the article written in this journal, which gives you a clear-cut idea as to what is the way it has been polished. So that is why guidelines for authors plays an important role. I still remember when I was also, now too, I'm not saying that I'm an expert in publishing. Yeah, every day is learning, and each day we come across various journals which gives you so many things. So sometimes it so happens that more than a year I have been trying for an article to be published in a journal, but still the revisions are such that 1 to 2 years you may not be able to publish one single article, but that article is still in the journal office, which we need to wait and watch what is their status. So that's why guidelines for authors plays an important role. Each section has a specific purpose as part of the whole manuscript. Understanding the symmetry of the different parts of the manuscript and how they relate to each other is also important for development of a cogent publication. And carefully read this, because when I say guidelines for authors or author guidelines, naturally, as I told you very well, it will help you to polish your article, so that the revisions are very less. And one more very important is, when there is guidelines for authors, they give you clearly the what to say, reviewers. And when it goes to the reviewers, it so happens that if you have done well based on their author guidelines, the revisions will be comparatively lesser. That is why, it will save time, allow for a more efficient processing of your manuscript, and shows the reviewers that you're careful in your work and respect the requirements of the journal's format. This is an example of journal what I put. Like I have sent articles for human lactation also, because my area of interest is more on breastfeeding, but still it is in the process where I was unable to publish one in this, but it's my dream that I need to publish in this, because it's really a very good journal. And this is a journal of health and allied sciences by Time Publishers, and it is knitted EU also is part of this journal, which is more into Web of Science, because I think today, if you see to the universities, they only ask you what to say, Web of Science or Scopus index journals. So these are the two databases which are of prominent significance in publishing. So when we say to Journal of Health and Allied Sciences DITE-DU, this we have published in this, wherein this is more of Web of Science journal or Publons, what we call, and this is more of Elsevier's, Scopus Index journal. So Scopus and Web of Science are two databases where you need to think of publishing in these two. Today, PubMed also is not taken into consensus, though it's a huge database. The universities give importance to Web of Science or Scopus Index rather than PubMed or rather than peer-reviewed journals. That is why today I think we as academicians should publish in these rather than those journals, because performance-based appraisal system or PBBS, what we call it as, is all based on how best you have published in these journals, which are of high repute and also high impact factor journals. They are all high impact factor journals. Why? Because the citations are more, and thus, you get high impact factor on these journals. So this is just an example where I've been trying for this, which I'm unable until now. But here, this is our own Journal of DITE University with Time Publishers, which is again in Web of Science, which is also a very good journal. So I just thought of putting these two. So I've told you, I think, between the difference between Web of Science and Scopus indexing. So both these are, abstract and citation databases. I think this means they have lots of information about journal articles and other publications. They are also useful for finding articles and also for tracking citations and other matrices. So as I mentioned to you, Scopus is large interdisciplinary database from Elsevier with particular strengths in science and technology and very good citation features. And Web of Science is a collection of databases maintained by Thomson Reuters. So if you're thinking of publishing, dear students, think of these journals which has got a good indexing, and impact factor is on the rise. So that is why we say Web of Science and Scopus indexing. And with this also, I'll tell you one more thing with manuscript writing before I could go further. The points to be considered is carefully check your functional writing composition, style, and syntax. Again, I'm coming to the same aspect. In manuscript writing, when I told you initially, introduction should be a compelling introduction. That is why it is here said that carefully check your functional writing composition, style, and syntax, and have a proper paragraph structure. So that is why each paragraph should start with the topic sentence and will end with the transition sentence to the next topic. When I say this, that is why, when I'll be just talking few words on this, like plagiarism, fabrication, what else, grammarly, Turnitin, all these are aspects which are of clear significance, so that you are on the safer side to publish also. Make sure that there is logic and symmetry to all the parts of the paper. That's why it is clearly said that when you write as an IMRD format, and basically after the abstract, when you start with the introduction and move on to the conclusion, there should be a symmetry, that is from the introduction to the methodology and back to the results and coming to the discussion and conclusion. There should be some sort of, relationship or some sort of, organized way it should be, so that the reader is able to get a glance through the entire thing, and finally he will be able to grasp what was there from the beginning to the end. Only then a manuscript is really taking it, and it will also be helpful for the author, because somebody else will cite this and he will be able to have the citation. That's why H index, all this comes into picture, cite factors, because the author who has published will be able to increase his citations. That is how citations play an important role with the author. So internal review for content and language and develop a document which has been thoroughly reviewed by co-authors and colleagues prior to submission. This is also very, very essential. That's why today it is said that whenever, there should be a research coordinator in all the universities and at the institutional level, and the manuscript submission should go through the research coordinators, which will be of really good practice, so that the research coordinator will be able to give an input whether the manuscript, what was written by the colleague, is perfect or not. Or it can be through a teamwork. Why? Because only when discussions go rather than a single author, it will be much refined, and the manuscript will come in a shaped or polished manner. That is why internal review for content and language and develop a document which has been thoroughly reviewed by co-authors and colleagues prior to submission. And finally, submit a polished product after review process within your scientific team before you submit the manuscript to the journal. If you look into the difference between a manuscript and an article, you can very well see manuscript is nothing but it is in the pre-publication phase, then you call it as a manuscript. So manuscripts are always in a pre-publication phase. This includes drafts as well as manuscripts submitted to publications for consideration. But an article, when we say, it's nothing but that has been published. So do remember, because it is always interchanged. Many a times, article I have sent for a publication also, we call it. So that is why it is more of an acronym or synonym. But there's a slight difference between manuscript and article. So manuscript is when you're sending for an publication, you call it as a manuscript. Once the article is published, you call it as an, once the manuscript is published, you call it as an article. So articles can be non-peer reviewed or peer reviewed, but you're right, transforms from a manuscript into an article the moment it is published. So that's very much important to know the difference between a manuscript and an article. Okay. Next, we'll move on just to highlight the novelty of the research in the manuscript. See, I have conducted a research and I should know, yeah, I should really bring about the novelty. How to bring about this novelty? You should know, why are you doing the study on? So, and what is the significance of this study, or what is the uniqueness of this study from other studies? Only then, there will be some novelty which will take up. That's why today, if you look into funding agencies, like for example, ICMR, Indian Council of Medical Research, they usually take up so many, they give funding for researchers, but as nurse researchers, we have unable, we don't get so many funds from ICMR. But then they say if something novelty is there, yes, we do fund it. So that is how the best way to highlight the novelty in your study is by comparing it with the work that was done by others and pointing out the things that your study does which was never done before. Sorry. As I said, the simple thing, thermoregulation. We just put the baby on the warmer for thermoregulation. As Westerners say that a good cry, a good cry is not necessary to put the baby on the warmers. You can directly put on the mothers abdomen. Yes, a good cry indicates that the baby is doing good with the, baby has started breathing, So that is how the novelty, yes, how best it can be unique and how it can be implemented. That is what is very much important. So the best way to highlight the novelty is by comparing it with the work that was done by others and pointing out the things that your study does, which was never done before. So that is why first conduct a thorough literature search to identify what is already known in your field of research and what are the gaps to be explored. Link these points with your study design and findings. That is how we highlight the novelty of research in the manuscript. So once you have made a note of these points, you can incorporate these into your manuscript in the following ways. So introduction section, I mentioned to you, mention how your study is going to address the gaps. Then in the discussion section, discuss the findings of the previous study and specifically mention what new observation or insight was generated through your study results. That is what is very, very significant. Okay. And in the conclusion section, clearly mention how your study advances the knowledge in the field. So that is what is very much important in the novelty of research in the manuscript. I thought just let me put forth this also because when we say to manuscript writing, they just ask how strong is your manuscript and which journal are you going to publish it, So to bring about the quality of the journal or to publish in the quality of the journal, there are what is called as Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4 journals. So today, I think again, universities take into account it's not only publication, how well you have in which journals. Is it a Q1 journal? Is it a Q2 journal? Is it a Q3 journal or a Q4 journal? When I say Q1, Q2, Q3, they are nothing but a quartile score which is given to the journal. It is nothing but, see, it's like more of a percentile, okay? So Q1, when we say it's very good, high impact factor, top impact factor, 25% journal of a paper. In the first 25, it is the highest. Then you call it as Q1, wherein Q2 is between 26 to 50, Q3 is 51 to 75, and 76 to 100. So these are some of the journals where they are Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4. This is nothing but the journal ranking or what we call it as they find the journals. Like, for example, my area of interest is on breastfeeding. They take about 100 breastfeeding journals and they see what was the side factor for the past 2 years for these journals, and they segregate among that by putting them in Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4. When we say Q1, Q2, they are the highest impact factor journals. So today, I think as researchers or as academicians, this is also a challenging aspect to all the researchers to aim for Q1, Q2 journals, Q1, Q2 journals, which I myself find it very, very difficult publishing in these journals, but it's very challenging, and I think we should also work on it so that we are also able to aim it one day to reach to Q1, Q2 journals. So this is, I just thought, because when you write a manuscript writing, this also plays an important role today because publication today is into more of top journals. So Q1, Q2, Q3. Today, predatory journals are so many also where we sometimes are unable to identify whether it's a predatory or because the names of the journals are similar. If you go to the UGC care list, there are journals which gives you under the UGC care list, which is again a way of search engine finding. Okay, so this is Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4. And the last is the impact factor. I think this is not much needed because little bit complicated, but uh, nevertheless, I think journal impact factor, as I mentioned, yes, how many citations have been there in a 2-year period, and that is how the impact factor increases with the journal. There are like usually Lancet and all, or what to say, BMC. All these have a high impact factor, and it's very, very difficult to publish in these journals because it's of very high credential or the way it is taken up, because novelty plays an important role there. But nevertheless, impact factor is one thing which we need to work on it also, because as the impact factor increases, the journal is a very good journal where we can it also. This is how it is cited. And one more very important with the manuscript writing is importance of the keywords and the mesh terms. Mesh terms is nothing but medical subject headings or search engine, what we call it as, Springer, Sage are all very good publishers where you can very well think of publishing with having these mesh terms and keywords so that you get a bunch of journals wherein you can think of publishing your article depending on your manuscript on what was the subject you have taken it for manuscript writing. So keywords are a tool to help indexers and search engines find relevant papers. So this will increase the number of people reading your manuscript and likely lead to more citations. And mesh terms also allow you to locate articles which are specifically about a topic rather than just mention it in passing. And finally, if you look into what makes a good manuscript, a good manuscript should present new, does not previously published results and should be well written. That is, it should have a fluent narrative, be concise and at the same time complete, have good graphics, and also be correct in the citing of work of other researchers. So this is what makes a good manuscript. And I just thought, finally, once you finish this, you require to polish up or polishing what we call it as. That is why Grammarly plays an important role. Check grammar and spelling because this is also a very important aspect when you write a manuscript. Never have some sort of flaws in your writing. So check grammar and spelling. And today we have these softwares where they look into the grammar and Grammarly's are there. So it really corrects it. Improve the style of your writing by looking into the journal guidelines. Then one more very important is they should not be any plagiarism fabrications. That is why today I think when you submit a thesis or a project, plagiarism checking, what we call it as, is a must. Like in our university also, we have what is called as a Turnitin software, where we do a plagiarism check, and the plagiarism check should be, below 15%. Uh, you can take the matter from something as a review, but it should not be the exact words. You should put it in the references. Nevertheless, the exact word should not be copied and put it in your thesis. That is what is very, very important. That's why no plagiarism. And one more thing is fabrication should also be not there. Falsification, fabrication, and all are all not a part of original research or an authentic research. Very, very essential when we write the manuscript writing. Uh, I remember, some of the journals which you look into, a person might have published in one. I had go through one somewhere long back. He had published somewhere in the year 2001, I believe, and the same this he has published after years, 2008, in another journal. See, these are all not ethically right on the part of the researcher. It is moral ethics what is really important when we publish our articles. So publication plays an important role. And before we publish manuscript writing, so manuscript writing also requires all these aspects to be taken into consideration. That is why, if you have seen to author guidelines, they also ask you to submit a copy of the IEC or Institutional Ethics Committee copy, or they ask you whether IEC was accorded for the study. Why they ask you IEC was accorded for the study is nothing but they just want to confirm that this study was with ethical consideration. So this is very, very essential. Finally, I just want to mention few quotes. Turn your manuscript into a book is easy, but getting the manuscript ready to become a book is hard. This is what happens with all of us as researchers. As I mentioned, Journal of Human Lactation, I've been trying for the past 2 years, I think. Still, it is on the review process. Still, you're not able to have your publication in that. But it's my dream that I need to publish there. But I'm not left. I'm working on it. So that is how it is. the slightest thing is wrong, they ask you for, revising it again and again. So this is what happens with manuscript writing. But nevertheless, you should not be dejected. Oh yeah, it's not. They are asking revision. Let me just drop here and go for some other journal. No, as far as revisions are concerned, it is good. But as far rejection is also concerned, it will help you to succeed up, because failures are a part of it and success comes with failures. So turning a manuscript easy, but getting the manuscript ready to become a book is hard, because you need to have perseverance in bringing about a publication. So if you have to have this perseverance, you have to do hard work, and if your hard work will help you to fetch the goal what you want to achieve. So, and one more, Abdul Kalam has stated, all of us do not have equal talent, but all of us have an equal opportunity to develop our talent. Very true. In research also, not all of us, or all of us are on the same boat when we come to research, but it's only with your passion and interest you think to move ahead and think of achieving something. So as to in research also, in publication or manuscript writing, yes, we need to develop our talent of writing in a reputed journal, and that is how, by looking into the author guidelines. So I'm telling you, author guidelines plays an important role, and these author guidelines, if you look into the clear cut guidelines and you read their publication previously, how they have been published some other authors, you will get a fair idea as to how to go about with your study, and that is how you can do the best. And one more very important is, just choose the journal for which, because your study and your journal should match. You cannot think of a study something related to anxiety or psychological impact. You cannot think of putting it in a breastfeeding journal. There is no correlation between mental health and breastfeeding. But simultaneously, something related to mental health with breastfeeding, yeah, there may be a correlation. So this is how. So the journal choosing should be in your hands in such a way that you are able to understand which one is of my choice. Okay. So with this, I just would like to end my session by saying a thank you to all for giving me an opportunity to be a part of this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Understanding and selecting a quality indexed UGC or PubMed, Web of Science, or Scopus Index, or Thomson Reuters journal is very, very crucial work. So again, preparing a manuscript according to their set criteria is a further task. But you have explained all this in a beautiful nutshell, very effectively and in a simplified way. Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you for your time. And now I take this opportunity for discussion. So if the participants have any queries or questions, you can ask or put it in the chat box. There is no further questions, ma'am. You have touched all the aspects of the
No,
particular topic. So
yeah.
there
Yes,
is no
Vinaya.
further more. Yeah.
Thanks a lot for giving me an opportunity. But nevertheless, I think as researchers, every day is learning. Every day is
Yes, ma'am.
learning.
Yes.
I've just touched upon few aspects what I do with my research, and but still I also been finding
Sure,
it
ma'am.
hard
Sure.
to publish in reputed. That's what I said. Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4. Today the goal of all the universities, which we have been
Yeah.
trying for it, but I think we'll have to achieve it by some or other, working on it. That is what I want to say. Hard work or perseverance will make us what we want to achieve.
Yes, ma'am. It's a crucial task what we are
Yes,
having in
yes,
the front for
yes.
the professional
Yeah,
advancement as well as
correct.
with the university requirement. Uh,
Yes,
ma'am, anything
yes.
to add?
That's it. I just touched upon all. And in
Okay.
fact, very
Okay.
important is the manuscript writing, how well to journal author guidelines we need to look into. That is what I just want to say to all. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, ma'am. So now I take this opportunity to thank Dr. Sabita Nayak for being the resource person for the webinar, sharing the valuable time with us. And also I thank the management support to conduct this event. My heartfelt thanks to Dr. Ravindra Heshan, Principal, Parul Institute of Nursing, and all the HODs, all faculty members for the timely support and cooperation. And also, I extend my gratitude to IT department and the staff of PU for this technical support. Once again, thank you all for the cooperation. Have a nice day. Thank you, ma'am, once
Thank you,
again.
Vinaya. Yeah, thank you.